After morning recess in Donald Trump's criminal trial, where Stormy Daniels testified, Donald Trump was absolutely livid. He made his lawyers file a motion for mistrial, which was swiftly denied by Justice Merchan. And when Justice Merchan denied it, he also said, "I have to tell you, I was very surprised at defense counsel by Mr. Trump's lawyers for not objecting as I think they should have during the testimony of Stormy Daniels. I, sua sponte on my own as the judge, interposed some objections and cut off some of the questioning by the district attorney's office, but it was not my obligation to do so. So I only did it a few times, but I was surprised that Donald Trump, your own lawyers, did not lodge objections during the testimony," to which Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, who was arguing the mistrial motion after morning recess, said, "But we did object to Stormy Daniels' overall testimony." And Justice Merchan said, "Don't try to mischaracterize what went down this morning. I granted in part a lot of your objections to getting into some of the kind of very scandalous stuff about the actual sex that took place, because this is a falsification of business records. So I did sustain your objections on certain issues, but then we did let open the questioning on other issues. And Mr. Blanche, it was your obligation to object, not this court's obligation to object. So that's on you." And Donald Trump watched it as his lawyer was basically, Todd Blanche was getting shamed by Justice Merchan, and rightfully so. So here's what went down, just to jog your memory. You had Stormy Daniels testify in the morning after like a vice president from Penguin Random House first testified about the books that Donald Trump wrote, because Donald Trump wouldn't authenticate his own books and claimed that the ghostwriters went rogue, and that's why the ghostwriters said certain things. Trump wanted to distance himself from the ghostwriters. Okay. Then the people called Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels went through very methodically when she met Donald Trump at this celebrity golf event in 2006, how Donald Trump's security guard, Keith Schiller, went over to her and told her, "Mr. Trump wants to have dinner with you in his hotel room," how she first rejected that. And then her publicist said, "Why don't you just go for the story?" How she showed up in Donald Trump's hotel room. He was wearing a Hugh Hefner-like robe, and then she told him to go and get dressed. They ended up spending a lot of time in the room together, at which point she went to the bathroom. When she was in the bathroom, Donald Trump then took off his clothes. So when she walked out, he was in his boxer shorts, and she described being kind of very surprised by that. There was a moment where she was talking about Donald Trump telling her that he would help take her out of a trailer park, although there was an objection there that was sustained. And then she talked about how there was a power dynamic at play in the room that was clearly there. Donald Trump was talking about The Apprentice and getting her a job there. Donald Trump also, before having sex with her, compared her to his daughter Ivanka. He said, "You know, you both have blonde hair. You both are misunderstood. You remind me a lot of Ivanka." And then testimony that was allowed to come in, because there was no objection to it at the time, was that Donald Trump did not use a condom while the act was taking place itself. Donald Trump was livid that this testimony came in. And then during the break, here's what Donald Trump posted: "The prosecution, which has no case, has gone too far. Mistrial. This witch hunt is false ancient history that was fully adjudicated by the voters in the 2016 presidential election. It only has to do with election interference and trying to help crooked Joe Biden get elected, because he can't do it by himself. It's a vicious attack by the Soros-backed DA, Alvin Bragg, in strict coordination with the Department of Justice at the White House and Biden's political opponent, me. It's illegal, unconstitutional, and strictly third world country." By the way, even Andrew Giuliani, who was there, was basically saying, who's Giuliani's kid, right-wing extremist guy. He was like, why isn't Donald Trump's lawyers like objecting to a lot of the stuff that they could have objected to? And by the way, that's a common theme with them. They don't object, then they whine and complain about it. So after Donald Trump posted in all caps, "Mistrial," Then Donald Trump's lawyers arrived for the afternoon session before Stormy Daniels testified again, and Trump moved for a mistrial. Here's how Katie Fang described it. Todd Blanche stood up and said, "Your Honor, we move for a mistrial based on the testimony this morning. The guardrails were thrown aside. That testimony was so unduly prejudicial to Trump and the charges in this case that the testimony about the incident in 2006 is way different from the story she was peddling in 2016. The only reason this evidence, testimony about being blacked out, not wearing a condom, the spacing in the room, the power dynamic, all of this has nothing to do with the case and is extraordinarily prejudicial. And the only reason they asked, aside from the embarrassment, is to inflame the jury. There was testimony about a second alleged sexual advance sometimes later, totally irrelevant to the case. She testified that there was communications with Trump afterwards and that something bad was going to happen. She kept saying that she made sure to meet him in a public place, and this was said repeatedly, to which the prosecutor responded. The story by Stormy Daniels, what she testified to, is highly appropriate, going to motive before the election. And this is precisely what the defendant did not want to become public. This is not a new account from Stormy Daniels. And then Justice Merchan responded and he said, "Look, I was surprised, Mr. Blanche, that there were not more objections from your side. When you say the bell has been rung, when you say that this is prejudicial, you, sir, the defense, has to take some responsibility for your own actions here. Your remedy is cross-examination of Miss Daniels. You had the opportunity to object. You did not object, and so you have to live with that. Do you understand?" As one commentator pointed out, that's the problem. They set themselves up to not only lose the motion for mistrial, but to lose the appeal by not having their objections on the record like anybody else would make. You know, I thought one of the important pieces of evidence, too, that came in, and this was at the end of Stormy Daniels' direct examination, where Stormy Daniels is asked about Donald Trump's Truth Social post attacking her. And so the jury got to see this. And we told you, right, that this was part of the evidence that the jury was going to get to see. And here it was. Here was the moment. Question: who do you understand that Mr. Trump is referring to in this post that he made? Who is he calling horseface? Who is he calling sleazebag in this post? Stormy Daniels. Answer: me. No further questions. Then you had cross-examination by Donald Trump's lawyers. Here's what Donald Trump posted, and the jury got to see this post. Remember how we told you his words were going to go back to haunt him? Here it is. "I did nothing wrong in the horseface case. I see she showed up in New York today trying to drum up some publicity for herself. I haven't seen or spoken to her since I took a picture with her on a golf course in full golf gear, including a hat, close to 18 years ago. She knows nothing about me other than that her con man lawyer Avenatti and convicted liar and felon jailbird Michael Cohen may have schemed up. Never had an affair with her, just another false acquisition by a sleazebag, witch hunt, exclamation point." And so the jury has now seen Stormy Daniels' phone, her text messages showing that she has Donald Trump's bodyguards, Keith Schiller's information. The jury's now seen the payments that were made to Stormy Daniels. The jury's seen internal corporate documents from the Trump Organization, from Donald Trump's former controller, where he breaks down the payments to Michael Cohen to be made to Stormy Daniels. How Donald Trump's own controller was aware this was reimbursements for Cohen making these payments to Stormy Daniels. How it was grossed up from $130,000 to $360,000, and then you had to add in There was another $50,000 payment that was added from Red Finch that Cohen needed reimbursement for. Plus, there was a bonus to Cohen, and how all the numbers added up with the 35 checks that Michael Cohen eventually received. So you've seen it from David Pecker, Catch and Kill, who runs the National Enquirer, Keith Davidson, the lawyer for Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, Hope Hicks, who talked about her conversation with Donald Trump, where Trump said to her, you know, what do you think about the fact that the story's coming out now in 2018 and not before the campaign? What do you make of that since Cohen paid these women off? What do you think about that? And now you've heard from Stormy Daniels, her specific testimony, and then you see Donald Trump's post saying, I did nothing wrong, and calling her a horse face. And I was in full golf gear, including a hat. And then she went into very specifics about what went down. So if you're watching this and you're the jury, what are you thinking? I'll give you this one anecdote I've heard from several sources in the courtroom. Norm Einstein was one of the people who reported on it as well, where when Stormy Daniels talked about how originally when Donald Trump had asked her if she wanted to go to his room, she said, F no right away, before her publicist said, hey, just do it. You know, you may find it. You at least have a story to tell. How the jurors' faces smiled with her saying F no originally to Donald Trump. And so I always want to talk about some of that jury body language as well. But I think this is big news. Again, Donald Trump getting, Donald Trump's lawyers basically being admonished before Donald Trump. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. It's free to subscribe. Hit it.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.